by definition, we must move to renewable energy. I think people sometimes, I mean, how can one argue against that? Because to argue for it is to say that we will eventually run out of energy and die. I mean, or civilization will collapse. I mean, first of all, it's important to appreciate that the Earth is almost entirely solar powered today. In the sense that the sun is the only thing that keeps us from being at roughly the temperature of cosmic background radiation, which is 3 degrees above absolute zero. If it wasn't for a sun, we'd be a frozen dark ice ball. And the amount of energy that hits the sun, that reaches us from the sun, is tremendous. It's 99% plus of all energy that Earth has. Then there's this energy we need to use to run civilization, which to us is big, but compared to the amount of energy that reaches us from the sun is tiny. So it's very easy. Like, it actually doesn't take much. If you wanted to power the entire United States with solar panels, it would take a fairly small corner of Nevada, Texas, Utah, anywhere. You only need about 100 miles by 100 miles of solar panels to power the entire United States. And then the batteries you need to store that energy to make sure you have 24/7 power is 1 mile by 1 mile. One square mile. That's it. Mm-hmm.
It's worth noting, I'm not sure if people are aware of this, but the world could be powered many times over by solar if you had enough battery capacity to pair with it. Many times, like 1,000. It's literally true. The amount of energy that reaches the Earth from the sun is staggeringly high. We have this enormous fusion generator in the sky that is lobbing out vast amounts of energy. And I'm talking about just using land area. I mean, it's really amazing. In fact, here's a little tidbit. If you take a nuclear plant and you took its current output and compared that to just taking solar panels and putting solar panels on the area used by the nuclear power plant, because these typically have a big keep-out zone, of about maybe 5 kilometers or thereabouts, where building houses, and dense, any kind of dense office or housing space. Usually people don't want to do that near a nuclear power plant. So there's quite a big keep-out zone. And when you factor the keep-out zone into account, the solar panels put on that area would typically generate more power than the nuclear power plant. So, I mean, if you wanted, I mean, you could power the entire United States with about, let's say, 150 to 200 square kilometers of solar panels. The entire United States. Take a corner of Utah. What does need to happen is to, if we can, accelerate the transition towards renewables. That's the sensible thing to do. If you take, use maybe two examples. Saudi Arabia, since the Saudi Aramco president spoke here. Saudi Arabia has an enormous amount of sunlight. And that will be there for billions of years. Well, at least 1 billion years until the sun eventually engulfs us. But 1 billion years, solid. So it seems that, investing in the solar resource is the thing that's really going to preserve the long-term future, not so much the oil and gas. I mean, that's a temporary thing. In the future, we'll look back, and by future, I'm not talking about super far in the future, I'm talking about towards the end of the century. We will look back on gasoline-powered cars the same way we look back on coal, as sort of a quaint anachronism that's in a museum.
Now, a lot of people would say, well, solar, can that really provide the energy that we need? A lot of people don't perhaps appreciate that solar energy is already the source of the vast majority of Earth's energy. Without solar power, we would be a frozen ice ball at about 3 or 4 degrees above absolute zero. So really all we're talking about for solar electricity is taking the tiny bit of energy that humanity needs for electricity which is, I emphasize, is super tiny compared to the amount of solar energy that hits the Earth. You could generate all the electricity that the United States needs with about a 100-mile by 100-mile grid of solar power. So you could just take like a corner of Arizona, and that would be all the energy that the United States needs.
This is extremely important, fundamental. In a way, you can think of Earth like Earth is like a giant satellite. And the way that satellites are powered, including the big geostationary satellites, which we're quite familiar, we just launched one actually at SpaceX. Those will last for 20 years with no maintenance in orbit. Literally, no one can go to them, so they're designed to zero maintenance. And they're entirely powered by solar and battery. But there's no fundamental scaling limit. So just as you can power a big satellite purely with solar and a battery, you can power Earth purely with solar and a battery. Earth is a giant satellite. Because the writing's on the wall for the long-term future of coal, which is that coal does not have a long-term future. And so when one looks at either the establishment of a new coal power plant or doing a major upgrade of an existing coal power plant, when going to investors to get financing for that, investors know that coal does not have a long-term future. So the capital cost is incredibly high because they want to charge a very high interest rate because they're not expecting it to last 30 years, which is normally the length of time that they would want to amortize the value of a power plant. So effectively, coal becomes very expensive because people aren't willing to invest in something that doesn't have a great future.
I think the important thing to bear in mind with batteries is there really is no material shortage. The Earth crust has essentially an infinite amount of metal as far as humanity is concerned. We have barely scratched the surface of the metal resource availability of the Earth's crust. And this is a very fundamentally different thing from mining coal or oil or because metal is recycled. So once you have enough metal to support a given size of industry, then it just keeps going in a recycling process. I mean, there may be a small amount that exits the recycling process, but it's quite a small amount.
The useful life of the battery, depending on how long, what energy level is considered to be the end of life of the battery, is sort of on the order of 15 years. But it does depend on how heavily the battery is used, what percentage of how deeply it's discharged, how aggressive power is added to the pack or removed from the pack. But the electronics can last to 20 to 30 years. But typically the cells have about 10% of their value even when they have no energy capability left.
So obviously we must find ways to produce energy in a renewable manner. The question is just how hard we should try, what pace we should go at it. And I think logically we should go as fast as we can, because since we know we have to get there eventually, it's better to get to a renewable future, a sustainable future sooner rather than later. Get there before we do the environmental damage, not after. And even if one could say that well, maybe there isn't that much environmental damage, to play the devil's advocate, maybe the environmental damage, maybe it won't be that bad. Why take the chance?